Brook Drumm joins Darren to talk all things 3D printer with Printrbot. This segment of Hak5 is brought to you by Domain.com.
Alright, so it locks there. So it just lifts right there. You carry it around like that.
What would you say is your title?
My title?
Yeah.
That's a good question. When forced, founder, CEO. Do I look like a CEO though? Come on.
Well, what were you doing before this?
So right before this, I was doing websites. So just doing, basically WordPress sites. I wasn't even a real, web guy. I was doing CSS and HTML and just doing WordPress websites for nonprofit and small businesses. So, and got a little bored. This is kind of cool. I don't know if you want to show this, but one way we've got the cost down is we use 200-pound test Kevlar fishing line instead of belts.
What?
Yeah, and it works really good, dude.
Wait, your stepper motors don't care?
They don't care at all. No.
So like, is it boredom that led you into 3D printing?
It's fair to say that I was bored, but I don't think that led me in. What it was, I'm a maker, and I've kind of realized that through my life. I'm like 41 now, right? And always doing projects in my garage and always making something. And even when I was a kid, I used to dream about being an inventor and like being able to make stuff. But I'd never really told anybody that, I just kind of I have these books after book after book of like all these drawings and all this crazy stuff that I dreamed up. And it made me mad growing up because I'd come up with this idea and then I'd read it in Popular Science a year later. I'm like, dang it, I want to be able to make stuff quickly and someday maybe I'll do it. So I just decided, you know what, pushing pixels around a screen doesn't do it for me anymore. You can't hold that in your hand. It's not something that affects somebody's life, in real life. So I got into wanting to build out my shop in my garage, and I realized this is expensive. I can't afford nice equipment. So when I saw Brie Pettis on the cover of Make, it kind of clicked. I was like, I knew about 3D printing because I'd been reading about Jay Leno in his garage doing all this work on a Duesenberg where the part doesn't exist. He scanned it and did it in the foundry. And I thought, man, someday. But when I saw that cupcake on the cover of Make, I was like, okay, I'm in. And I didn't have any money. I had to start saving up. And it took me probably 6 months to save up for this $700 crappy printer. No offense, Brie. But it was pretty bad then. And it was very, very early days. But after getting that, I sat at the kitchen table and my kids were there. And I actually, to be honest, I forced them to sit there with me, and you will put this together. And the one memorable moment I always talk about is my son Levi is the first thing he ever soldered on at 6 years old was a 3D printer. So I thought, this is cool. This will be a memory, But it was hard. I mean, it was hard because I thought the design was bad. And it just kind of was an aha. I was like, dude, I think I can do better than this. And so since it was a rapid prototyper, I thought, perfect, I'll start modding this thing out. And so started a meetup group, wanted to become an expert. And found a lot of really smart people in the community. I'm lucky that we live in a place where there's a lot of tech and a lot of really smart guys. So the one thing I'm really good at is getting people together. And so I decided, let's all band together and build some 3D printers. And so that's what we did. And after kind of coming up with a design that was kind of a simplified Prusa with some other kind of ideas of my own, which is a RepRap printer. Replicating rapid prototyper has this big open source community. So I just went with one of the popular ones and saw, well, we can make this even simpler and simpler. And so we came up with something that actually worked. Not great, but it worked. And by the end of the meetup group and all the betas that I kind of pushed out 10 betas to these guys, I mean, some of them are here. I decided, you know what? I think I'm ready to try to start a little side business with 3D printing. And so my wife, literally, it's not a story. I said, okay, I want to mortgage the house. And we were already kind of in debt because the web business wasn't that great. And she was like, we are not mortgaging the house. She goes, you can sell your car. I got this old Porsche. And I was like, I don't really want to do that. So she said, you know what, Kickstarter, that you can do. And I said, okay. it's kind of embarrassing to ask for money. So we decided I could probably build 50 in my garage. I mean, I'm like right over here. It's a small house, 1,300 square foot. I got like 4 crappy cars and a rundown motorcycle, and there's no room. But I had a little bench, and I said, okay, I could probably do one at a time and do that. But when I put it on Kickstarter, man, it blew up. And the 25,000 goal at the end of 30 days was 830,000.
Why would you say that is?
I think it was timing, It's definitely not because I'm a genius, even though I totally am. No, I'm just kidding. I think it was timing, because it was like the nexus of 3D printing was like really coming up, but not as much as it is now. It's like grown even so much more. But it was really kind of hot with the geeks. But Kickstarter was really hot. Like Kickstarter was, like there was the Pebble that raised tons of funds. But at the time, I was like number 2. I'm trying to remember if I was number 2 in technology or overall, but I was in the top 10, and for a year or so, I was in the top 10 of the fundraisers. So Kickstarter was hot. The maker movement was hot. Like Make Magazine was coming on really strong, and like people were rising up and like making their own crap. So it was the nexus of those 3 things at this point in time, and call it luck or whatever. But
do you think it's luck?
I was there. No, I was made to do this. I believe I was made to do this. And I believe in God, but I don't think He put me on earth to like raise $830,000. I think I just at the point in time I was like, man, this is what I need to be doing, and I knew that it was hot, and I knew these things were growing in popularity, and I thought, man, I got to get in fast if I'm going to do it. So I do think I was at least aware that it would be good timing. I just had no idea it would be that good. So I mean, I don't want to take too much credit. We all kind of saw it coming, but I just happened to be the first to like really hit it. And I think a lot of the Kickstarter stuff too, by the way, and people ask me, how do I replicate what you've done? And I always say, and I joked with these guys earlier, find out where lightning's going to strike and stand there, and then beyond that, that's not enough. Because I know other guys that made a bunch of money on Kickstarter and they haven't got, it's a year and a half later and they haven't got their product out. So you also have to be like really authentic and like honest and hard. Like this is freaking hard work, man. Like going from nothing to like $2.4 million in a year and a half.
Would you say that was kind of a burden or not?
It was absolutely a burden. It almost killed me, man. I mean, I've lost like 25 pounds. It's been, there's a dark side to Kickstarter.
Well, there's a lot of change going on right now in the 3D printing space. I mean, it feels like in the last couple of years it's really blown up. And to me, as an outsider looking in, it kind of reminds me of, well, in the 80s with the clones and the IBM PC. And so what are some of the technologies and some of the new techniques that are evolving that are really piquing your interest right now?
Yeah, I mean, what's funny about these things is because it all spawns from the open source movement, you've got a real kind of a rush to start these companies to make 3D printers. And, none of us have a lot of experience in this. I'm into this, a year and a half, and some people call me an expert, which is hilarious. I just came earlier than some. But there's a lot of people getting into this, and it's getting so easy to do. I mean, you could literally design your own 3D printer in a couple of weeks, and it could look totally different than these, and people might actually buy it. So the barrier's getting low. But to be able to run a company is hard. So I just want to preface the new tech that I'm talking about with the old tech of doing a good job with customer service, having good parts to begin with that are really tested well. Being able to scale is really, really hard. I talk to other 3D printing companies, and a lot of the smaller ones, like, how many are you selling, if you don't mind me asking? They'll say, we're selling, we're really thrilled to sell 1 a day. And some days we don't, and some days we sell 2. So like 300 a year. And I'm like, dude, that's awesome, because their printer's a lot more expensive than mine. And I'm like, wow, that kind of sounds nice, 1 a day. I mean, we're like today, we probably ship 30, 50, 60 packages, but maybe 30 printers. It might be less, I don't even know, but 25 is about what we can handle with the current staff. So what are people doing? I mean, what are people excited about around 3D printing? One is, so there's three sides to this. One is hardware, and that's kind of where we all started. We all jumped in a designer and hardware, or we took an open source design and tweaked it to our liking. So hardware is kind of not the news anymore. There's no real new way to skin a cat with this anymore. Not with FDM, with ABS and PLA.
Were you always a capitalist?
Not cashed
Were you
in.
always like kind of a entrepreneur at least?
Always
spirit?
been an entrepreneur, always. Yeah.
So when you stop working for the man?
This is like my fifth business. So I got right out of college and did, I wasn't even done with college yet. So actually, before web design, I was a pastor. I was youth minister. I did, right out of Bible college, I have a Bible degree, and it's a literature degree in Bible. And I got out of college, and boom, I did a coffee house, an internet cafe, coffee house restaurant. Like, boom, I did that. It was the best 3 years, man. And then I went and worked for a church, and then I did this website stuff, like always. Ever since the internet existed, I was building websites. I mean, that was like back in 92, was it 94? 94, I was building like crappy websites, and like hand coding HTML was really, really bad. But it got better, and so I always built websites for people. And then went to work for a big church here in Roseville. And then they laid me off, and my whole department. I was doing creative stuff, video editing, all this stuff. But then went into business again, did another business, and then, the guys like me, the serial entrepreneur guys, you just keep banging your head against the wall until something breaks. Sometimes it's your head. Thankfully, it broke through, and we've got a winner.
So dial it back for me a minute.
Yeah.
For anybody that's not familiar with a rep wrap, or even just the concept of 3D printing or additive manufacturing, how does it differ from the traditional means of I throw out CNC or a computer controlled kind of
Sure. So rep wrap it stands for replicating rapid prototyper. Now, there's a couple of ways to make things. One is you can take a big block of aluminum, put it on a CNC mill, and get a bit and dive it into the metal, and shavings go everywhere, and you remove everything you don't want.
Kind of like the statue of David.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the quote, right? It's like, I just look at the rock and remove everything that's not
not David.
But this is FDM, so this is fused deposition modeling. I was going to say manufacturing, but it's modeling. So what this does is the opposite. It only adds what you want. It only adds the David, right? Only what you need. So one cool thing about that is there's no chips flying. There's just deposited onto the hotbed if you're using ABS. So it doesn't have to be like that. It can be blue
ABS
tape.
being a piece of plastic.
ABS is like the thermoplastic, which means you heat it up, it gets soft, you squirt it through a tube, and then it cools and gets hard again. So Legos is made of ABS, right? So that's the stuff. But this stuff is cool because you can print parts for the replicating part of the replicating rapid prototyper, rep wrap, is they replicate. So this was the Kickstarter one. And the cool thing is these were printed. So Printrbot's, literally it started with a cupcake in there, which is awesome because I met Bree Pettis of MakerBot, and I said, dude, your bot started your competition. I made, with that cupcake, I made that Prusa Mendel, which is a rep wrap. It all has roots in this rep wrap movement. Bree started from, Zach Hoken and a rep wrap. And anyway, so they kind of spawn other children. And so there's a grandfather and a father and a child and then grandchildren and so on. And Printerbots are all descendants of the cupcake in that room. So we were printing Printerbots on Printerbots for Kickstarter.
So is it like forking code?
Well, it's like that in a lot of ways, because what happens is what's wonderful is when you have a prototyper, they're really good at making one thing really custom one time. But what some people were like, this is we're gonna democratize manufacturing. Instead of shipping out all this stuff over to China, and we get our knives and forks and spoons just stamped out by the millions and bring them over. Now we can. The joke was, what is that guy that's so funny? Anyway, he had Bree on, and he goes, okay, so So instead of going to China for our crappy plastic stuff, now we can make our own crappy plastic stuff. And it's kind of true, because I would never want to make more than a few things on this. What I do is I print one thing that I design myself. And I do print doodads and stuff that you can download. But what this is really good at is designing your own thing. And I use like SketchUp, easy stuff. You can use all those other AutoCAD stuff, but SolidWorks or whatever. But I make one thing, I print it, I put the pieces together, I use it, or I look at it, and I figure out where it needs to be better, and I redesign, and I print it again. And that could happen 2 or 3 times in an hour, depending on the size of the piece. So anyway, I am one of the, and somebody told me on Twitter one time, he said, Brook, to the guy, and I can't take all the credit, I had people working with me too, but to the guy that's printed more things on planet Earth than any other person, I don't know if that's really true. But I got to thinking about it. I did the math. We probably printed somewhere between 25 and 30,000 parts in 6 months, and in this little shop in Lincoln, California. And I have done manufacturing with these machines, and I can tell you with great authority, you don't want to do it.
So if you don't want to do it, why are you doing it?
You don't want to make
to do that.
What I'm saying is you don't want to make 20,000 of anything on a bot farm. But what you do want to do is prototype. So I think they're really good at prototyping. And what I get excited about is not I get excited about bringing business to America. And I get excited about a guy in a garage that can make 100 things, and another guy in a garage, like a state away, making another 100 things, and maybe thousands of guys in thousands of garage making millions of things. But one guy isn't going to make millions of things. It's just not going to happen. Manufacturing is going to be different. And I think the way it changes is that we make more custom parts in lower volume, and that's what these things are good at. So, but that's still secondary to the fact that you can invent stuff and print it out on your printer at home, on your kitchen table with your 6-year-old kid, and it actually works. So it's not fancy, but I always talk about, now when something breaks, I don't go to Target. Now when something breaks, I redesign it. My toilet handle broke, use my toilet, you'll be using 3D printed parts. Is it fancy? No, but it's awesome to fix something. So I really believe in that, like do it again. I always wear these shirts, I don't have one on right now, but our kind of battle cry is on the back of my box, I say, make in America. It's not supposed to say made in America, it's supposed to say to you, start making your own stuff and start fixing your own stuff. Make in America, or any country, but do it yourself, because there's something to be learned, and there's a real value in craftsmanship. So I get pumped up about it, man.
What about the deltas you've been seeing?
Yeah, the delta is, man, it's fun to watch. It's really fun to watch. It's like this 3-armed alien unit thing that's like moves around. The problem with it is my kind of philosophy is simplicity. So you can see like this little itty bitty printer it doesn't have a large build area, but let me tell you, I challenge anyone to build something simpler than that. We call it the simple. There is so few parts in this thing, and it's like bare minimum. I don't know if I could I could probably take a part off, but it might compromise the rigidity or whatever. My philosophy is simple. Simple, simple, simple. The Delta Bot is like 2x the build height, and that bugs me. So it's very cool, but it's twice as tall as it needs to be. To print 8 inches tall, it needs to have at least 16 inches of travel, and that bugs me. And it's just big. But I don't think the machines are the big deal anymore, with one exception, and it kind of rolls into this next one. Materials are getting pretty cool. Lots of fun colors. PLA is getting more common.
What is PLA?
PLA is polylactic acid, so it's basically a biodegradable corn-based thermoplastic. Some people say it's not biodegradable. I don't know how many years. I tried to eat some of this once, and it tastes really bad, and it doesn't really chew up very well, and it doesn't digest. So I don't think it's like awesome. We can all, but it is. What's nice about PLA, it's somewhat brittle. So if I were designing like a head for my mountain bike, I would not design it in PLA. It's like designing it in thin acrylic. It's gonna shatter and be brittle at under certain stresses. ABS is the way to go for stuff that's like really structural. There's some more materials that are coming out, a little more exotic, a little more expensive, that are super hard. There's, of course, polycarbonate is more common. Our hot end is one of the few hot ends that can extrude polycarbonate because it's a really high melting temperature. That's the difference between these thermoplastics. What else? We've also got PVA, which is, I don't know what it stands for, Lane probably knows, but polyvinyl alcohol, I didn't even know that. But it's water-soluble support material, so if you add more than one head, it starts to get exciting. You can combine a support material that you can dissolve away and make like crazy things with big, long overhangs and whatnot. So Lane developed for me, we've got now a triple extruder board, so think about 3 materials. And just one example, so there's a kid in Colorado that backed me in Kickstarter, Easton LaChapelle. He was in Popular Science a few months ago. He wanted to develop a prosthetic limb, and he met this little girl with this $80,000 arm that did this. And he was like, oh my gosh, we can do better with some Arduinos and servos. So, and 3D, and she said, the mom said, yeah, and the sad part is, we got grants and stuff to help with that, but we're gonna have to replace that arm like 3 or 4 times while she grows. And so he was like, man, with the 3D printer, you just print another arm. So he's like, I'm gonna design one. At, what was he, 14? He spent the next 2 years just going into Arduino and got the Kickstarter 3D printer, and he designed an arm that has all these, movements, even the shoulder, and he did it for under $1,000. And so now he's getting called like top medical people. He's going to NASA this summer. He's got a full ride at several colleges. It was funny though. The guy at, I don't know if it's Harvard or Princeton. I'll get it wrong, but it's some of the Ivy League. The dean of students sat him down and said, he goes, man, I don't know what I'm going to do because do your classes, are they going to be able to teach me anything? And the dean of students said, nope. Really, college would be a waste of time for you right now. But he's just this kid with a 3D printer. And he's one of the guys that's changing the world, right? He's going to these conventions and he has like billion-dollar corporations like scared because the truth is out. We can make our own stuff, right? So anyway, materials is one thing.
I can't tell you how cool it is and how heartwarming it is to be sponsored by Domain.com for almost 4 years now, to just be up in Portland hanging out with them. And this is why I love working with these guys, because they're real people, and this is why I get my domains from them. And so get this, they've got the latest thing. What you're gonna want is get yourself a .net. You see, you've heard me tell you before how .nets are so cool. They're globally recognized. They're instantly adding credibility to whatever your project may be. They're a great alternative to a .com if the one you want's taken, or even a companion to a .com if you already have one. But yeah, I love the whole story of the .net as well. Is really rich. I mean, it goes back to 1985 and the original RFCs for different top-level domains, and it wasn't actually on the list, but it just got kind of snuck in there at the last minute, which is so cool, and to see how far that little TLD has come. So get this. You can get yourself a little .net over at Domain.com. It's where I shop, it's where Shannon shops, because like I said, they're such cool people. And they're only $8.99 a year, but get this. Because you're a Hak5 fan, because they believe in this project, they're hooking you guys up with 15% off. So all you have to do is go over to Domain.com and use the coupon code HAK5. When you think domain names, think Domain.com.
Last week's trivia question was, where does the term "arf arf gotcha" come from? And the answer is eGabter, or EGABTR, which is a Trojan from 1995. This week's question is, what radio station did Kevin Poulsen take over to win a Porsche 944? Answer that over at hak5.org/trivia for your chance to win some awesome Hak5 goodies.